No industry changes faster than modern marketing. Great marketers need an edge. Great marketers need to be brave. The Brave Marketer podcast provides an opportunity for each guest to share a story where they exhibited bravery by taking a risk that made a dramatic impact in the market. Our guests are marketers from top brands and agencies who share the exact strategies and tactics they used in their brave marketing moment. We then dive deep into topics like ethical advertising, consumer privacy, crypto marketing, brand safety, and navigating a future without third-party cookies. Hosted by Brave Software and me, Donnie DeVoren, head of sales at Brave. Together, we'll get a backstage view of the brave marketing moments and creative mindset work that's shaping today's most influential brands. Welcome back to the Brave Marketer podcast and our first episode of season 2. We're really excited to be back in your ears, and we know you're going to love the first episode that we picked to kick off the season because this is all about Disney Plus, which if any of you have kids or any of you into Marvel or anything like that, you probably already have Disney Plus. And we interviewed Andrea Cutright, who's the VP Global Subscriber of Marketing and Insights for Disney Streaming. And what I really liked about this episode is we kicked it off not jumping right into the brave moments, but we really talked about the service itself, why the growth, why was it the perfect timing, how they've gotten to 94 million subscribers. And then we got into the brave marketing moment, which was this key moment when they decided to launch, which is really exciting. And I won't spoil it, so we'll talk about the details. But before we hop into today's episode, we want to highlight our Brave pick of the week. So every episode, we choose a brand that has run an ad campaign with Brave as our pick of the week. And this week, we're choosing Verizon. And totally coincidental, we talk about on the episode how a lot of my friends used Verizon to get a free year of Disney Plus. I actually missed that, so I am a paying subscriber 2 years in a row. But with Verizon, in an effort to support small businesses nationwide during the COVID-19 pandemic, they partnered with celebrities such as Dave Matthews and Usher to launch the Verizon Pay It Forward Live campaign, which consisted of weekly live stream events to drive awareness for viewers to support their local business and their communities. And Verizon used a high-impact Brave ad strategy that included our big sponsored image, which some people have called our homepage takeover, as well as push notifications and social drivers to create awareness and get users to share their tune-in intent on Twitter. This resulted in 23.8 million Brave ad views, a blended CTR of 8%, 1,100 tweets, and it was just great because it was all for a good cause. And you can find the case study in the show notes below, or just visit brave.com and go to the advertiser section. So now let's get into this week's episode. So you're going to meet Andrea Cutright, and again, she's the VP Global Subscriber and Marketing Insights for Disney Streaming, including Disney Plus. And Andrea is responsible for all subscriber marketing touchpoints, overseeing product and engagement, marketing, and subscriber insights. Prior to working at Disney Plus, she spent nearly 3 years as the co-founder of Done, a consumer insights company working with companies such as Uber, Samsung, and Nilo Robotics. She was also the co-founder and CEO of Foodily, which was acquired by IAC in 2015. And with no further ado, here's today's episode of The Brave Marketer with Andrea Cutright. Andrea, welcome to the Brave Marketer podcast. How you doing today?
I'm excellent. I've been looking forward to this. It's my favorite way to spend 30 minutes is getting to talk about marketing.
That's great. And we're excited to have you on. Speaking of excitement, why don't you share with our listeners, what is the most exciting thing you're working on right now?
Oh, there are a couple of great things. As you can imagine, the House of the Mouse always has something exciting going on. But two things that are really cool. One is that we're starting to work on our launch plans for Asia Pacific. So that includes Taiwan, Japan, Southeast Asia, and just thinking about extending Disney Plus to these new markets, new subscribers, new competitive marketplaces, just a lot of fun work and a lot of hard work for the team, but really exciting. Second thing that we've been working on and thinking about, and I know it seems crazy, but we're already thinking about holidays and what's going to happen at the end of the year. And We'll be 2 years old at that point, and I can't even express how much change has gone on and since launch to now. But just really fun to start looking at that second anniversary and all the new things coming forward, but also looking back.
Yeah, I can't believe 2 years has already passed. But I remember signing up when you launched because I have three young children. And it was just like the perfect thing to do during COVID when we just had so much time at home. I remember that there was a deal with Verizon that I did not use. And all my friends were like, oh, you got it for free. I was like, no, I didn't do it for free. And then I couldn't be bothered to figure out like how to get a refund or whatever. So I'm a second year paying customer, and the kids just absolutely love Disney Plus. It's when I tell them about this interview, they're going to be so stoked. So Andrea, it seems like you guys are on a tear. I read that Disney Plus has hit 94.9 million subscribers, and you beat your 4-year goal in only 14 months. I know, like I just said, why our family subscribe, but why don't you share what do you think is attributing to this surge in subscribers and just this quick product adoption?
Well, I think one thing that was a real benefit was to work on all of the upfront research, really talking to people in many countries about what it meant to be a subscriber of SVOD services and what it meant to be interested in different kinds of Disney Plus content. Lots of people didn't know, and maybe we've changed that over the last 2 years, that Disney is the home of Marvel and of Star Wars and National Geographic, and the addition of some of our assets acquired from 20th Century Fox. So there's a real breadth of content there that was exciting to see people really spark to. While they know Disney content and Pixar content really well, these were new things. The second is that obviously COVID happened. And I think while we had an amazing launch, really surprising and shocking for those of us who had been working on planning the product, I think COVID and people's kind of home life and change in the way that you entertain yourself, especially at night, really supported an increased interest in having a diversity of subscription services. And then I think third, overall, the marketplace is just moving that way. Like I think some of our top performing, or performing might not be the best word, but most read news stories about the launch of Disney Plus really had to do with the fact that more and more services were marching toward SVOD, toward paid streaming premium services. And this was a real shift in the marketplace and a trend that was going to continue for a few years. And we've certainly seen that to be true from AT&T's announcement last week, the launch of Discovery Plus, Paramount Plus, et cetera. I think we're riding a trend and got in there a little bit early. But the high quality of content, I think, certainly helped move us in a direction even we're surprised to be dealing with this level of scale at this point of time in our life.
Yeah, I mean, I've been noticing the a la carte trend for a while. We've been cord cutters for years, and obviously started with using Netflix. But really, what it comes down to is just to share one more family story is that I said to the kids, hey, we're going to cut cable and we're going to use all these other services. And the kids said, no, daddy, you can't cut cable. You can't cut cable. And then I said to them, guess what, kids? We haven't had cable for 3 weeks. They didn't even know
Notice.
because we've been using all these other services. So why don't we start talking about tactics that you've used? So what specific marketing tactics did you use? What worked? What didn't work? What are you using now?
I think, first of all, like every good growth strategy starts with really understanding who your market is and really spending a lot of time with that customer and a lot of time in what I call the phase called kill your hypotheses. A lot of people do market research and almost act like pitchmen, trying to sell their product or convince people that certain features are important or not important. One tactic that I really appreciate using and have found a lot of value in is actually one where you go and say, why will this fail? Give me some ideas of what you would kill. Here's an idea that we had. Tell me what's wrong with it. In a way, you get a lot more out of that. And I think for Disney Plus in particular, that served us well in people being able to talk about what did and didn't work for them with other SVOD services that they might have subscribed to and what didn't resonate from a messaging standpoint. And a lot of when you do that, you get people's own words that you can then repeat back or put into our marketing campaign. So what we heard the most there was verbally people talking about the 5 brands or these 5 things. And that ended up playing out also in our product strategy, where we actually have 5 tiles when you go into the product so that it's very visible and very upfront about that's a place where I'm really going to get value. And it helps me to see that every day. From a marketing tactic standpoint, one of the benefits of track record, a historical track record within the company of really launching films and gaining awareness very quickly over time with heavy up marketing campaigns, that was certainly another strategy that we pursued that I think was really positive. And more of that weight actually went digital than it did above the line.
Hmm.
A
Got it.
third thing was like we just talked about this trend, like being at the heart of some trends. That repeatability, if you're a marketer, you really need to understand what story you're telling in the marketplace. And one of the best stories we had leading into launch was that we were consolidating our content onto one service. So taking things from what had been maybe licensed to a Netflix or another provider and pulling them in house. That story, in and of itself, really helped gain word of mouth and understand that this was going to be a dedicated home of content that you cared about. And in order to be able to see it, you needed to subscribe. So I think the compilation of those pieces, and I think just a very fun and interested group of marketers who would just try a bunch of things. We tested a lot of things out. Some things worked, some things didn't. But being able to really have a test mentality and see how those things performed was probably the last piece of that puzzle so that we could put more weight into the things that were working.
Yeah, and it's a good segue into the brave marketing moment that we really like to focus on in these episodes. And you had mentioned before the call that the decision to launch the Disney bundle just prior to launch of Disney Plus. So you mentioned it had all three elements of a disaster in the making. So will you talk about those three things and really just talk about why there was a risk? Like, how'd you put your neck out a little bit?
To set some context, we were literally 45, maybe 50 days from launching the biggest thing that the Walt Disney Company had launched in years. We're launching Disney Plus, but maybe if, not even 2 minutes in advance, invent a new offer, require 3 organizations within the Walt Disney Company umbrella to work together on that offer, and make sure that it is an optimal user experience and complicate your marketing message. All plenty of time to figure that stuff out. I think that the disaster in the making always comes with when there's partnerships. I think those have to be well planned and to make sure that those go forward. And while we all work for the same company in the same way, everybody also had their own marketing plans, their own calendars, their own agendas that they're working on. A second is that we went forward with a price play. Here's something where we were discounting some of our services in order to get people to sign up for all 3. And I think at the time, launching something that you haven't even launched your first product and you don't know if pricing is quite right, to launching a second product offer and thinking, oh, I hope that price is right as well. And then the last piece is really that you had to have faith that you were already at the highest value. So Disney Plus was already a highly valued product. We hadn't even launched it yet, but we were going to make a bet that there was an ability to add on to that and continue to add value to it. So those are pretty risky concepts. The timing just made it that much more insane. And one of the things I've really loved about working at Disney Streaming is making the impossible possible, is just a group of people who really believe that if we all pull together, it can happen. Magic can happen.
Aw, just to use the Disney
Mm-hmm.
term. I got the goosebumps. That's beautiful.
No, I'm so glad.
This is great. We've spent a lot of good time talking about Disney Plus and the launch and your brave marketing moment. So now let's just shift it up a level higher and just talk about marketing in general. Like, what are you seeing out there, Andrea? Specifically, why don't we start with what's the biggest threat or the biggest challenges facing the marketing industry right now?
Yeah, obviously, a pat answer would be the post COVID world as the doors to our homes open up and the doors to restaurants and bars and everything else open to greet us. Certainly, in my business, we're thinking about that a lot and thinking about the change in mindset. And I think that change in mindset is permanently altered in some ways from before COVID. And we really need to think about how people react to the world today, what messages really resonate, how do people really feel on an ongoing basis. Because marketing is basically just matching up what conversation you want to have with the consumer with the way that they're currently operating and entering in the world. So I do think that's going to be a giant change for every business to think about, because I do feel like people are permanently, change the way they think about things, whether that's e-commerce. I don't know how much you grocery shopped online before. I did, but it's amazing to me to see my mom and my dad doing it and thinking it's quite normal. And I think we continue to see that and will continue to see that moving forward, that the role of business, and therefore really the role of marketing in the face of the business, really needs to be part of the world, part of the community, and react and respond. The second thing that I think is giant for marketers today is that the change in public opinion toward, I think, really embracing and being respectful of cultural moments. Obviously, I think if we all look back 10 years, lots of things happened in the world, but I hadn't seen necessarily businesses or industries react and respond in the way that people are today. I think social media has definitely helped that. I think the feeling of closeness in the world, and also the feeling of maybe responsibility of being a participant in the community and people's lives. I think those are two really big things I think are just an interesting way to change your mind as a marketer, and way more than cookies are going away and we can be rid of retargeting ads.
Speaking of cookies, I was thinking about like that Oreo moment in the Super Bowl when the lights went off. And that was just like one of the best examples early on of really connecting the marketing to what was happening in real time. And I think that's probably one of the riskiest things too, because you can totally mess it up.
It's one of the
Yeah.
reasons, like one of the things I've been telling my team is that the days are gone where you would hire someone to do some research and throw it over the fence to you so you could read a report and think about people. Every person on my team needs to be talking with people every day. What are the moods, attitudes, behaviors, opinions that people are carrying around in their heads, so that you could really use those and leverage those thematically as you move forward? I think the time of being divorced from your subscriber or downstream from their opinions and attitudes, or that time is gone, because it's going to take everyone collectively thinking about, this is what I am hearing and understanding from different communities that I tap into, and having that sort of agile core center. Like I talked about test and learn earlier, in a way, you're going to have some innate capabilities as a marketer to be able to respond and hit the right
Yeah.
note.
And for years, social media and digital has changed that, the ability for, users to go to Twitter and tag the company. And there's so many social media listening
Hmm.
tools. But to your point, it's like, how do you really use that data? Because otherwise, it's just like an ocean of data. How do you pick out the nuggets
Yeah.
and then decide which are the good nuggets to use? Because in that one TV spot that you're running or that one banner ad, like you can only choose one or two messages out of the thousands of things people had mentioned on social media. So I think, in my opinion, that's one of the most challenging things, not just listening, but deciding which nugget is the best one.
Yeah. One thing that we had the opportunity to do early, almost pre launch, after we had done a bunch of research in different markets, was we did just messaging quantitative research, which I hadn't done before. I've done things like it, but this was literally a dedicated study that just tried to phrase things in different ways to get people to react to certain features, to certain messages, to certain content promises. And it was so informative and telling of words that resonated and words that didn't resonate. In fact, it's something we're thinking of repeating this year, because obviously we've grown a lot and we've introduced a lot and the world has changed a lot. It is something where the choice of word really does matter in the long run.
So, what are your hopes for the future of marketing? What do you think are some of the biggest opportunities right now?
Some of the things that I'm spending time on are really, it will sound boring, but I'm spending a lot of time on our marketing technology stack. And I think that the opportunity there is that true right message to the right person at the right time, in a way that that phrase or statement's been out there for quite a long time. But I haven't ever really felt like it was true, or there wasn't anything really to back that up. It was all BS. At this moment, we have such amazing data lakes, ability to do data science modeling, like all these different skills have really developed and come together, that as a marketer, your job is harness some of this science to make a statement come true. So I'm really interested in marketers thinking about a future in which you really understand data science, you really understand marketing technology and ways to integrate messaging into people's lives and still have that natural creative kind of what to say, when to say it core from understanding your consumer really deeply. I just think that is the future of marketing. I think it's really interesting. I'm super curious how marketing technology is going to develop over the next 5 years. It's accelerating a lot of the companies that have been performing a lot of these tasks for us have been around a long time, but I actually think there's going to be quite a new revolution of startups really cracking the nut on data science.
I don't envy that role of trying to decide which Martech stack or which players to use. We've all seen the Scott Brinker landscape where 5,000 is now something like 7 or 8 or 9,000. And then I have a side business called Never Stop Marketing, where we analyze the intersection of advertising and blockchain. And so we took the Brinker landscape and we said, let's apply it to marketing and identify all the companies that are using blockchain technology. And when we first introduced that, there were like 100 companies on there, and that was like a few years ago. And the last one we introduced, there were like 450 companies. And so just that one little niche of using blockchain, that area has blown up. It blew up and then it took like a backseat during COVID, but I think that the strongest ones are going to come out. But anyway.
Just wait till you do that intersection with NFTs or something like that. Be 2 now and 200 by the end of next year. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. There's NFT marketplaces. You could do a whole report on all the brands that are using NFTs. And then more and more I'm getting people are sending me articles about the number of companies that are now have the ability to buy and sell cryptocurrency, because before it was like, oh, PayPal, and that was the big news. And there was a news about Visa and stuff. But like now it's every other day. And you're talking about like big banks that have been around for hundreds of years. And now they're getting into crypto. So the world is changing. But I think it's changing faster on the financial side of the house versus the marketing side of the house.
It follows the money.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it is a currency and it's a smart contract. And anyway.
Yeah.
Why don't we finalize with 2 last questions? So you wouldn't be here today if it weren't for X, or if you hadn't started X.
I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't moved from, I think, a generalized sales and marketing role with Yahoo in Europe to working on the global Yahoo brand. And I think that gave me the opportunity to do 2 things. One is I worked on a brand in decline. It's a lot more fun to work on a brand that's on the rise, but working on a brand that's in decline gives you permission to test certain things and put different theories into place, because what exists then or what the general practice isn't necessarily working. So that really opened my eyes to approaching every project with an experimentation mentality, with putting what is the elephant in the middle of the room that we should really look at and maybe move aside or tackle. And I think anytime you have an opportunity to frankly experiment, to have permission to change things up, it's a job you should take at some point in your career. Always being someone that optimizes on top of what's working just doesn't, I think, in the end, give you the chops to keep up with the changes in the world, keep up with the changes in the marketplace, and even as we enter a post-COVID world, keep up with the changes in the way people think and their mentality.
And our last question, which we'd love to ask our guests, is, can you nominate another brave marketer that we should have on the show?
Yeah, and I don't know if you've reached out to her before or not, but Bennett Porter is an interesting CMO who went from running marketing at SurveyMonkey and working on Gallup type polling consensus things to Booster Fuels, where she ran fleet and personal fueling systems. Just someone who is brave by nature of the different jobs that she takes.
Yeah, those are very different. We've spent our time in marketing, me on the sales side and you on the marketing side of the house. Well, Andrea, it was really a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Donnie.
Well, thanks for listening to today's episode on the Brave Marketer podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to Andrea and talk about some of the risks that she had to endure when launching Disney Plus. I thought it was really interesting when we were talking about when she had to pick a different marketing stack and choosing between all of the different vendors. And really the theme to me was listening to the consumer and using the right technology to listen to them, and then picking out the right messaging that you want to incorporate in your brand advertising. So I thought there was a lot of key insights that people may pull from this episode, and really all about listening. So finally, if you have a brand or product or service that you'd like to get in front of Brave's 30 million users, please email us at adsales@brave.com and let us know you're a podcast listener to unlock one of two perks. If your budget is under $10,000 a month, we'll bump you up to the top of our self-serve waiting list. If your budget is $10,000 or over a month, you'll qualify for a 25% podcast listener discount. Again, email us at adsales@brave.com. And finally, music credit goes to my own brother, Ariel Devorin. He did all the theme music, and hopefully you're enjoying it right now.